Sabres preseason continuing to plug along. I'm joined here by our Sabres insider, Paul Hamilton. Paul, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Pleasure. You know, I always love it.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, what better time to talk than after this latest Sabres preseason game? They fall down 3 goals to Columbus, and yet they managed to rally back, get a 4-3 win at KeyBank Center. You were there. Just what did you see from that game?
What a learning experience it is for the younger players. A guy like Zach Benson, who was with Skinner and Thompson, but they were on the ice for all 3 Columbus goals, and they're down 3-0. Now, I'm sure they all get on the bench and talk about it, but he understands, yeah, that's a learning experience, and yeah, we got to keep playing. You got to put it behind you. And he did, because what happened? Now that line's out for 3 power play goals during the comeback. So in the end, they were out for 3 against, they were out for 3-4, and he gets a goal and an assist, and a big goal in itself, converting a rebound. And here's the old veteran out there in the middle of the power play getting 3 assists, Kyle Laposo, you know, helping the young kids out. He played with Kulik and Roseanne, 2 young kids. Again, they weren't on the ice for the goals against, but it's 3-0. What are we going to do? And I'm sure he did a lot of talking to them on the bench. Okay, let's go. We got a lot of game to play here. We can still get going. And so there were a lot of lessons, I think, to be learned, both good and bad, from a game like that for those kids.
Just overall, from what you've seen this training camp and in this preseason, what are your takeaways so far?
Well, Benson again. I mean, he just has this knack of finding open ice and making the right play. He doesn't think like an 18-year-old that's just out of junior. I mean, this kid is making a bid to make this team. If it were today that the preseason ended and it was time to get ready for the regular season, in my mind, he makes this team. And it's just the way, I mean, he's played 4 preseason games. He has 2 goals and 2 assists. He fits right in with Thompson and Skinner, what doesn't miss a beat. And if you can do that, and if he can make the team and play on that line, what does that do for you? Now you got Alex Tuch on another line. That makes that line better.
Exactly.
You know, and so it just, as you go down the roster, everything can get better. What if you got Middlestat and Tuch playing together on a line? If you have Benson playing with Skinner and Thompson, it just makes the whole thing better the way they are. I just want to caution fans too, don't look too much into the defensive problems that they're having now. You can say, well, it looks like last year. Yeah, it does at times. But they haven't had their whole set of defensemen. Clifton and Eric Johnson have not even played a preseason game yet. Or your forwards. Every game has a sprinkling of NHL players, AHL players, and junior players. And be careful, too, before you're throwing some guy in the Hall of Fame who's a rookie and you don't want him to go down and you know, develop in Rochester. Oh, he's looked great. He's better this, that. Well, wait a minute. He's playing against NHL players, AHL players, and junior players. So, yeah, they're accounting for themselves very well, but let's not anoint them into Hall of Famers. The right thing to do is let some of these guys like Johnson, Ryan Johnson, for the most part, he had some problems in this game, but for the most part has just been so good. But it won't hurt him to go down and spend some time in Rochester. You don't need to rush him. You got 8 NHL defensemen here. You don't need to rush him up here. And just, you know, Bryson's played well in the preseason, as has Johnson, as has Stillman. Stillman's better. He's not all over the ice like he used to be because he played on a team that played that way. So he played that way in Buffalo. Well, it hurt him a little bit, but I've liked Stillman and what he's come back to do. So you don't need to rush Ryan Johnson up into a lineup. And I don't think you're rushing Benson if he gets into the lineup because, yeah, he's 18 years old, but he doesn't act like an 18-year-old. He doesn't play like an 18-year-old. And he wouldn't be the first guy, 18-year-old out of junior, to make the National Hockey League.
And kind of on that note, that's something that Don Granato has talked about. Benson's poise on playing with a line with Skinner and Thompson, that he doesn't play like an 18-year-old, that sometimes some young guys will play alongside those two. They'll be intimidated by playing with them. Sometimes we'll force the puck to him. He doesn't do that. He kind of plays within himself. I know we talked the other day about Benson. His size might be an issue at the NHL level, but you feel like what he's shown in the preseason kind of overrides that?
Maybe more strength than size. At 18, he's probably going to get a little taller. He's not really all that short. He's 5'10", but strength. He's going to get stronger. I mean, Quinn's gotten stronger. That's something he needed to do since he was an 18-year-old. So that would be the only question mark that I see right now. Is play is fine. And quite honestly, for the most part, I don't see him getting bounced around the rink. Yeah, he gets hit from time to time, but I don't see him getting bounced around the rink that much. You got to catch him first.
Exactly.
And he's elusive.
And he puts in the effort defensively.
Yeah, he's
as well.
not like the fastest guy in the league, but he's elusive. He's hard to hit, as elusive that he is. So, but if he doesn't make the team, I would think that would be the reason is you just want him to get a little bit stronger before you put him in an NHL situation.
Looking now at the goaltending, Devin Levi got the start against Columbus. He gave up the 3 early goals, but he was another young guy who bounced back very well, made some nice saves on a couple of breakaways. Is he starting to kind of pull away from everyone else, and is he looking like the guy who's going to be the number one for Buffalo? And just how do you assess the goaltending?
No question. He's the number one goaltender, and I wasn't real upset with the 3 goals that went in on him. They were like layups. It's like, well, the guy splits the defense, and in he goes, and he passes to one of the best goal scorers in the National Hockey League for a layup. What's Levi going to do on that? Patrick Laine knows how to put the puck under the crossbar. For sure. When the goaltender's down. And earlier in the game, now maybe if you want to get technical, the backhand pass that Kent Johnson made coming out the other side, you would say maybe he needs to foul that better, but Tage Thompson also needs to cover the goal scorer better too. So I wouldn't sit there and say I didn't like the goals against him. He will look at them, I'll guarantee that, and he'll sit down with the goaltending coach Mike Bales and say, all right, what can I do better here? Because that's the way he operates. He always wants to know what he can do better. And he's not going to blame anybody else for pucks going by him. He's going to figure out, what can I do better to make sure those don't go in? But as you mentioned, good recovery. I mean, he played really well. Right down, there was a puck that hit the post about 10 seconds left, and then he made 2 great saves to get the victory after the Sabres score 4 unanswered goals.
I know there's been some angst, though, with the other goaltenders. They gave up 5 in that Hockeyville game against Toronto. They gave up 3 against Pittsburgh. Just how do you feel about the goaltending situation as a whole on where they stand right now?
I'm not worried about the last 2 in Hockeyville because those are by a guy who might wind up in the East Coast League. And so the 3 on Luukkonen, though, there were some things I really liked about his game, but I didn't like any of the goals that went in on him. First goal, he hits his blocker and goes in. It was a clean shot. He could see it. Wasn't screened. And breakaways are not easy. I understand that, and I get that. But you're in a 1-1 game where you're getting fairly thoroughly outplayed, and you need to make a save for your team. And it's a shorthanded situation where they come in and get a shorthanded breakaway, score a goal. About a minute 28 later, somewhere in there, the guy coming out of the penalty box, Domi, he gets a breakaway, he scores a goal. You go from 1-1 to 3-1. You need your goaltender to make a big save there. And that's what bothered me about that. Not necessarily the breakaway goal. That's a difficult save, but you got to make it. You got to help your guys out. And that's the way I looked at it. But there were things I saw that I haven't seen on him before, how quickly he could get up. It looks like his legs might be stronger. I think maybe he worked on leg strength because he was down and up really quicker than I've ever seen him before. But he still has, some things that he needs to work on.
2 more preseason games left for the Sabres. They are at Columbus on Wednesday, and then they are back at home on Friday to wrap things up. Just what are you looking forward to seeing from this last week of the preseason for Buffalo?
This will be more of the Sabre team. Like I had a conversation with Connor Clifton. Why have you played preseason? And he goes, are you chomping at the bit? He goes, well, Don Granato and I talked about it. And he goes, if you think about it, I'm trying to figure out a new team, new system, new players. I'm going to get more because even during the preseason games, the rest of the guys who aren't playing, they practice. He goes, I get more out of practice than I do out of a game because we're learning systems and we're practicing it. You get more reps. You know what? That makes a lot of sense. He goes, I only need a couple of preseason games to get ready. I don't need to be in a bunch of them. Eric Johnson, same situation.
Veteran guys.
Neither does he. So I would be surprised if we did not see them on Wednesday. Maybe both games, but that's why they're the only 2 that haven't been in a preseason game because they decided, and he totally looked at it, that I'm going to get more out of a practice than I'm going to get out of a game coming to a new team.
For sure, and it's a long season, too. There's 82 games on the schedule. They're going to get plenty of time on the ice. Well, Paul, opening night quickly approaching, less than 2 weeks now until the Sabres open it up against the New York Rangers at KeyBank Center. It's something that all of us can't wait for, and I'm sure we're going to talk with you a lot more leading up to that game as well. But thank you so much for joining us.
Totally looking forward to it.
Appreciate it.